And hello, everyone, and welcome to the Copyright 2.0 show, episode number 367. My name is Jonathan Bailey, and I'm from the website Plagiarism Today, which can be found at plagiarismtoday.com. And joining me, as usual, the man who has far more than 99 problems, or so I'm told, attorney Evan Sherez, who is here to drop some copyright knowledge, but not legal advice. Very important. None of this should be construed as legal advice. Evan, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, as always, trying to figure out exactly what the hell you mean when you introduce me.
I have no idea on that one. That amused me and no one else. But
okay, all right.
We have to begin with something, though, because we have a very important question I have to ask you that the world has been wondering since we left the podcast last week.
I think I know where this is going.
What did you play? What did you sing?
Karaoke. I thought you were going to ask me if a chicken sandwich is copyrightable.
Oh, no, we're getting to that. First things first. The important stuff first.
Oh, I sang Superstition by Stevie Wonder.
Ah, good choice, but not Bon Jovi. I mean, you have to go back in copyright history and erase the title of the last episode. Urgh.
Well, I thought it was pretty good, Bon Jovi. So, I'll keep it up just for pure honorific.
Fair enough. But no,
purposes.
Superstitious, but see, that I would like to hear that. That actually sounds like a really good song for you.
Yeah.
But yes, okay, question 2. Copyrightability in chicken sandwiches. Go.
You know what? This was a really tough one. Is that can you copyright a chicken sandwich, both name and recipe? And the courts have been wrestling with this one for ages, and I won't be surprised if it goes
is important stuff. I mean,
to the Supreme Court. So I don't know if this is the final word.
Scalia is a big chicken salad fan, so he's going to have sharp opinions. He might actually write the opinion.
Legal scholars are divided around the world. The opinion came out today, and it turns out that district court found that it is not copyrightable.
Well, there you have it, folks. You cannot copyright a chicken salad sandwich, though the jury is still out about the trademarking of it in particular. Well, obviously, you can trademark the name of it, but,
Well, if you would trademark the name chicken sandwich, that would be okay if it was anything other than a chicken sandwich, because it can't be descriptive. So if you want to open a computer company that is called Chicken Sandwich, you might have some intellectual property success, but probably no entrepreneurial success. I'm
going to open up a hamburger place and call it Chicken Sandwich, and then get sued for false advertising.
Yeah, you'll have some problems in some other areas of the law there.
Yeah, that might not be wise. Not legal advice, but still probably not wise. So how have you been, man? How have you been doing?
I'm doing all right. I've had a good week here. Beautiful weather still here in DC. So, I'm keeping up my running and then, trying to stay in shape because, as winter comes around, the motivation saps, springtime, you're like, oh my God, okay, it's going to get nice outside. I got to get in great shape again. But,
you have the exact opposite running season we do in New Orleans.
Okay, so in summer you can't run.
I would love to see you attempt to run in the 90-degree heat and this humidity, which is what it is at like 8 o'clock in the morning. So you either have to run in like the dead of night, basically, before the sun rises, or get a treadmill, which is what I did.
Well, let me actually go back because I'm looking at the chicken sandwich case. I want to make something clear. It was actually it was a circuit court. Oh. That was so it was an appeals court.
Yeah.
And really briefly, this isn't one of our real stories, but in case anybody is interested in hearing about it, it was actually the Fifth Circuit, and Chief Judge Jeffrey Howard confirmed a dismissal of a complaint.
I would just love to say, though, Chief Justice Jeffrey Howard, that is a perfect Chief Justice name.
Chief Judge Jeffrey Howard, yeah, it does
that rolls so beautifully. We call him the gunning judge.
So, yeah, two restaurants were fighting each other, and one tried to, one took the other to court and filed a complaint, and,
Well, it was going really good until the DMCA takedown on the chicken sandwich.
Yeah, apparently the story is that in 1987, one of the parties worked for something called South American Restaurant Corporation, franchisee and operator in the Puerto Rico, which is a U.S. territory, so U.S. copyright law does apply. He suggested the name for chicken sandwich, which was, the aforementioned name of the chicken sandwich. They had like a very, very slight modification of the name. Anyways, someone ends up copying the sandwich, and they get sued. He's like, "Oh, you're using my recipe," and it's like, "No, sorry, that is not. That is outside the scope of copyright law," and that happened today. But why don't we move on, and you can tell.
Well, real fast, we did have something similar happen in New Orleans not that long ago.
Oh, really?
A similar dispute over a drink recipe. I don't know all the details about it. I don't remember when it went down, but there's a very popular drink on Bourbon Street called the hand grenade.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the partners of that business broke apart for one reason or another and ended up founding his own bar very similar to the Tropical Isle where the hand grenade is, and making a drink very similar that led to litigation and lawsuits and other wonderfulness you might expect. Now, actually, do you watch the show Bar Rescue?
Sometimes.
Because they actually talked about it on that show. It actually was one of the episodes of Bar Rescue that was filmed here in New Orleans. There were 2 that I'm aware of.
Interesting.
And I've actually been to one of the bars that was quote-unquote rescued. And I don't know if I went pre or post-rescue because apparently they went back to the old stuff. Really? Right around the time it was supposed to be happening. So I have no idea if it was pre or post-rescue. It didn't matter. It still was just a mediocre experience. Well, anyways, now you want to jump in.
Yeah, let's jump in. Why don't you tell the listeners what we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, we have a lot of great stories. I'm really excited about this rundown this week. We're starting off with cheerleader uniforms, an area of copyright law that I don't think has been adequately explored. Next up, we have a little bit about Prenda Law's no good, really, really bad day that they had recently. And then we get to turn our attention to the city of Inglewood and their really, really bad, no good, bad day that they had. Turning around, talk a little bit about the Ashley Madison case, and then Snoop Dogg doing one of the craziest things I've seen in one of these copyright suits. Then we have a criminal copyright case here in the United States, as we have a man pleading guilty to criminal copyright infringement in Norfolk. And then we turn our attention to Vietnam, where the nation's national anthem now requires royalties. That's a bit of a bizarre one. And finally, the absolute worst person in the world to infringe the copyright of is, of course, as you know, Evan, an intellectual property attorney. But that is yet exactly what both the CBC and CNN appears to have done to one amateur videographer. So we got a lot to go through this week. You want to jump on in?
Sure.
Cheerleading uniforms.
Cheerleading uniforms. Varsity Brands versus Star Athletica. A decision on appeal happened today.
Yeah.
So Varsity, who produces cheerleading uniforms, sought and received copyright registrations for the 2-dimensional printout of basically the artwork that's on the uniforms. Mm-hmm. So this is what a lot of people do when they have something 3-dimensional, especially in the realm of clothing, is that they'll print out the art that's on the clothing and submit that to the Copyright Office to get a registration. Yeah. And as we've discussed before, you need a registration for both the statutory damages and the ability to launch a lawsuit. So Varsity Brands and Star Athletica are now in litigation over these designs. At the district court, they said that the uniforms, which basically consisted of chevron stripes and lines, just like, if you imagine what a very...
Imagine a cheerleader uniform without, like, the emblem of the school or whatever.
Right, yeah, you've got your chevron lines, which is 3 lines kind of in a
V shape.
V shape, exactly, that's a good way to put it.
I can't remember which way the chevron goes.
There'll be a V here and a V there, so, they're no Picassos, but they're not just a line. So
but they might just be Pollocks.
So, maybe that's an art. Is that an art?
It's our joke. Okay.
So they're in this kind of strange gray area when it comes to copyrightability, and that's actually what I thought the case was about. Whether they were sufficiently original to be granted copyright, and that is an interesting area of the law because a lot of courts will say that chevron stripes. Will use chevron stripes as an example as to what is not copyrightable. It must be more than chevron stripes.
And chevron stripes can be found on just about everything from military uniforms to, Chevron itself, the company.
Right. So you can generally try to get copyrightability if you're going to take a whole bunch of non-copyrightable elements and put them together in strange ways. That's why a line isn't copyrighted. But if you put 6 different lines or 15 different lines, it becomes a painting. And then that becomes it's a bit of a gray area. The lower or the smaller amount of actual or lines you put into a painting, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I first read the story, I thought like, hey, this is for sure like a great, very fascinating decision on copyrightability, because as you would imagine, a cheerleader's uniform was probably right at the cusp. If you just take basically the 2D printout of what's on it, there's going to be like 3 lines here and then like a triangle here. And so I thought it would be a really cool analysis. As it turns out, the case is actually about something called separability, that we've talked about before on the show. Mm-hmm. The district court found that the artistic part of the uniform was not separable, and therefore there was no copyright, and therefore the case would have to be dismissed. They didn't really consider the copyrightability, and maybe now that the appeals court has actually reversed that decision, and we'll get to more details in just a second, they'll revisit the copyrightability, but for now it was really just this utilitarian doctrine. So the doctrine basically says that anything that is utilitarian or useful is not copyrightable. For example, if you are the first person to ever put a sleeve on a shirt, yeah, it changes the way the shirt looks, but that's not something that you could protect under copyright law. It's a utilitarian thing. It's something that's going to cover more material. It's going to add more material. It's going to cover your arm a little bit better. You're going to stay drier. If you want to change a skirt so that it gives a cheerleader greater freedom to do jumps and kicks, that would also not be protectable. That's a utilitarian aspect of the item. So what courts do,
is part of the separation between copyright and patent, typically.
That's right. And so what courts do, because it becomes kind of fuzzy, like what is utilitarian, what's not. They generally try to look for separability. So is the design physically or conceptually separable from the useful aspects of it? And courts kind of all over the country are divided on how exactly they figure that out. Just to give you a short little preview of the kind of tests that are around, there's the Copyright Office has its own approach, which says that a pictorial, graphic, or sculptural feature satisfies the requirement only if the artistic feature and the useful article could both exist side by side and be perceived as fully realized separate works, one an artistic work and the other a useful article.
Kind of the idea of the photograph on a T-shirt. The photograph can exist without the T-shirt, and vice versa.
So that's only one of like 8 or 9 approaches. There's the primary subsidiary approach, which is that a case called, excuse me if I butcher this, Kieselstein Cord said that a pictorial, graphic, or sculptural feature is conceptually separable if the artistic features of the design are primary to the subsidiary utilitarian function. So that's what if you can't really separate them, but the pictorial part is really primary and there's only a subsidiary utilitarian function, and it goes on and on. I won't go through any more of them. And
to be clear, this area is so messed up that's actually kind of what the appeals court here said.
Yeah.
This area is really messed up and has been a mess for a long time. It's not often you get an appeals court ruling that actually implores the Supreme Court to step in.
So the district court, I think, was very confused here, and they said there's no separability here, which I think kind of doesn't pass the, what test? Because of course you can take a design off of a T-shirt and put it onto, a
canvas or
canvas, and maybe it's something to do with like the chevron stripes being like attached to the skirt, or I think that the shirts were sometimes cut open, and the court said that I think the words were exactly, the chevron stripes and lines are not copyrightable as they're not separable because they cause the uniform to be associated with cheerleading and sports in general. So it sounds like the court here is confused between,
separability is in, can these items coexist, and is it separable from the intended use of the functional article?
Right, and they said here like, oh well, it's too reminiscent of just cheerleading in general, and that makes it somehow useful. Well, no, that would be if you would look at the copyrightability and say that like there's no originality here. It's Santa Fe for cheerleading uniforms. These designs are stock Santa Fe, normal. Sorry, it's not creative enough, but
common themes.
You seem to have used that to use that on the separability angle. Well, that was overturned by the appeals court.
Yeah. Like I said, the appeals court was kind enough to sneak in a plea for the Supreme Court to please step in and provide some clarity in this area, noting what you just did about all the different tests and approaches on this. So that's kind of a rare thing. You don't see that very often, where the appeals court just says, we don't know either. We're voting 2-1 this way, but really, please, Supreme Court, jump in, overrule us, do something.
Well, the court said that, quote, nothing, save perhaps good taste, prevents Varsity from printing its designs and hanging them as art. So it felt that it chose...
Which I don't think would be in bad taste if it were like in a 1960s cafe, the zigzag.
Right. Well, that's where I really think the more interesting, for me, is that, if the court says that, this would not be very nice to hang up, but you could do it, it goes to a few different interesting parts of copyright law. One is that gray area between just a few lines and copyrightability, because of course it's not up to the taste of the court whether they like the art or not. It's whether there's sufficient originality. So, which is of course creativity and original creation. So I think that when the court says, hey, nothing except good taste prevents you from hanging out, that seems pretty clear that they would grant a copyright in it if they were actually looking at the originality of it. But they didn't. And
that's not the subject at hand.
No, it's not.
And like you said, this whole area, especially when dealing with fashion, has been a horrible mess for some time. It just really has been. Too many tests. And you quoted the Copyright Office earlier, and I think one of the circuits, but it seems like every circuit has their own approach to this right now. And you want the textbook definition of circuit split, here you go.
Well, I don't know if this is a circuit split.
I know.
I think circuit splits usually have like two
Yeah, I know, but
circuits that are on opposite sides of an issue. This is like we're all confused.
Yeah, we're all hopeless. It's actually worse than circuit split in some ways.
Absolutely.
We don't even know what we're arguing about. We're just a bunch of old guys yelling in a room about something we're not sure what we're arguing about right now.
I don't know if it's possible to have the Supreme Court say like this is what conceptuals, this is what separability is. This is what it's such a complex part of the law, and I think you kind of need the flexibility of.
Let's not forget that fair use was first codified by the courts. The four-factor fair use test was first codified by the courts. So this isn't unheard of, but yeah, it's going to be difficult. It will not be easy, and it will definitely rewrite large sections of copyright law when and if it does happen.
Well, yeah, if the statutory section on useful articles was subject to a Supreme Court case,
it would change. It would change a lot.
It would clarify a lot.
All right.
So let's move on to the
bad lawyers. I was really eager to get your opinion on this case, so I'll set it up and kick it over.
Sure.
Prenda Law was known, and I guess still is best known for being like quote unquote copyright trolls, what they refer to. They represented a bunch of plaintiffs, and we'll be getting to that in a second, who owned the rights to various pornographic works that were being shared on BitTorrent networks. They would do the thing where they would capture the IP addresses, file those mass John Doe lawsuits, and then after filing the lawsuits, get the identities of the people involved, and then try to secure settlements. Basically under threat of, hey, if you don't settle, not only is it going to be really expensive to fight us, but everyone's going to know that you like Naughty Nurses 17 or whatever the movie was.
It's usually worse.
Yeah, it's usually worse in these cases.
Yeah, weren't these people known for like targeting,
gay porn?
For like heterosexual couples, so the man in a heterosexual couple and the woman who was looking up gay pornography. So it was very, very vulture. No, what's a good way to put it?
They were not cool.
Not cool, yes.
Not cool.
Very predatory. I think that would be the right word.
That's a good word. I believe it's predatory. They were very predatory, and inevitably, a lot of bad things happen to them because, A, courts don't like it when you do that type of stuff. B, a lot of plaintiffs started fighting back, and when they did, a lot of improper activity was exposed, including noting that it was not actually, they weren't actually representing third-party plaintiffs. These were companies that at least appear to be owned by members of Prindle Law itself and the attorneys involved with it.
Yep.
Which is a major no-no. It might sound like a technicality, but it is a major no-no to do that. But anyways, one of the attorneys involved in this, Hansmeyer, Paul Hansmeyer, I thought I had his right name right, first name right, Paul Hansmeyer, his firm, Alpha Law, was hit with a $64,000 sanction judgment. Not a small judgment of sanctions either. That's pretty heavy. And the result of that was basically that just prior to the injunction, Hansmeyer pulled nearly all the funds away from the firm in two different transactions, one to another organization he operated and one to his personal account, basically left the firm bankrupt and shuttered the doors. Which I guess if they had an office, he would literally shut the door and walk away on this one.
Yes.
And basically the court has ruled that his behavior justifies what they call piercing the corporate veil. Usually in these types of matters, it's the firm that's on the hook for the sanctions, not the individual attorneys involved. But the court agreed that Hansmeyer's actions here justified piercing that veil and that he himself should be liable for that sanction judgment.
Piercing corporate veil is a concept that most law students learn in their second year if they're taking a business entities class. So, corporations serve a useful purpose in letting people go on business ventures and without putting themselves at risk. But these need to be real ventures and not shams to avoid personal liability. So in this case, when the company was found liable for fraud and all these other copyright trolling nonsense schemes that gave us all a bad name and gave copyright in general a bad name, he basically, as you mentioned, took the money out and put it somewhere else at a different company. Shareholders, officers, or directors of the corporation can be held personally liable for the debts of that corporation, which in this case there was one, which was the judgment against it, when fraud is perpetrated. So a simple example of the type of fraud in which you may pierce the corporate veil as a result of is, let's say a businessman leaves his job as a director and of a company and signs a non-compete clause with that company. At that point, he sets up a corporation and has that corporation basically do what he could not, which was compete in that same field. So that's the type of case in which the court will look at the corporation and be like, this is a fraudulent. The creation of this company was for fraudulent purposes. It was to get out your contract. It doesn't serve any other purpose other than that. And so the news companies can be determined to be basically a sham or a fraud, and they would allow the first company who had signed the non-compete clause with the individual to sue for breach of contract.
Yep.
So that's the kind of situation in which you may pierce the corporate veil. Basically, if you find that people were acting on behalf of themselves, not the company, you can end up finding them liable. There's lots of very strict ethical standards for officers and directors of corporations. And so when they commit fraud, they can no longer hide behind, these fictional entities.
Yeah, and that's more or less what happened here. It seems that the judge has agreed that the Alpha Law was pretty much a fraudulent sham in this case and was just basically a front for Hansmeyer's own personal bank account.
Right.
And proof of that is the fact he just transferred $80,000 away from it. And he did it after the show cause hearing, which a show cause hearing in this case is where the side seeking sanctions gets before the judge and says, here's our evidence of why we need sanctions, why they're warranted in this case. Please make them pay sanctions. And basically, right after that hearing, he did. And that's the moment you should know you're in trouble and sanctions are likely inevitable. As if that hearing does not go well.
These guys have been, dead in the water before these judges for a long time now. There was findings of fraud and judgments awarded. So
identity theft and oh my god.
Now this is just the sort of whack-a-mole it's almost like a reverse whack-a-mole. You know, you've got to keep digging and finding this guy, and it was all transferred over to the next company. Wouldn't be surprised if these guys end up in jail.
Yeah, and there is another interesting element, another side story to this that, since I didn't include, but another one of the attorneys involved, John Steele, one of the head attorneys, has actually been brought up by his local bar's disciplinary committee in Illinois.
Oh my, yeah, these guys are going to be disbarred.
Has brought him up on 7 different counts for disciplinary action, and none of them look too good. I'm not going to honest. It's a lot of no good, bad stuff. Their behavior was deplorable, and what gets me is the sheer amount of greed of all this.
Yeah,
because there are other companies that operate in this area and make money at it, but manage to avoid. They might be not liked. They might be kind of despicable. They might be slimy, but they're not in danger of being disbarred or going to jail either.
Well, I guess it's a slippery slope, and when he was greed, especially if he was sending demand letters off behalf of clients that weren't real.
Yeah,
it's just fraud. It's just
and then that means basically they get to keep all of the settlement money.
That's right.
They don't have to split it with anyone. That's got to be nice. That's got to be great for an attorney. Wouldn't you love that, Evan? Just to pocket that settlement check right away.
Of course not. I'm only in the law to help others, and so I want to make sure that they get the money. I
know. You're the quintessential honest attorney.
It's me.
By saying quintessential, the only. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, come on.
No. I know way too many.
Well, these guys give them a bad name. Yeah. Well, speaking of bad behavior, John.
Yeah, Inglewood, California.
Inglewood. We talked about this a few months back, maybe, about
I think it was,
the Los Angeles suburb mayor whose administration, I don't know if you can call it administration, whose staff sent takedown notices to YouTube videos in which a detractor of his was commenting on his policies as they were announced in city council meetings. So, and
they also filed a lawsuit. The city sued this guy too.
Wow.
And by the way, just for the record, the mayor's name is James Butts. We cannot make this up. His actual last name is Butts. So it's the name fits.
Keeping an eyebrow here at the Copyright 2.0 show.
Hey, I'm not the one that named that.
So they tried to claim copyright over these videos, and
of the city council hearings and whatnot.
I mean, we talked about this, that this is wrong in so many ways. Like, first of all, you probably don't even own the copyright. Second of all, this is clearly fair use, and a district court has ruled, and I believe this is an appeals court has confirmed the ruling.
Oh, good. They've already confirmed it. That was quick.
Basically, first of all, the legislature has severely limited the ability of local government to copyright this type of material.
Yeah, under the what was the act?
So the angle that the city took was like, hey, that law is actually unconstitutional because of the supremacy clause. So the supremacy clause of the Constitution says that the federal government, in making its laws, has the ability to trump state laws. That's either by explicitly writing in their statutes that this is a preemption issue, so states don't write about this, or there's another concept called field preemption, in which it's sort of implied by what's written in the law. And so copyright is one of those main areas of preemptions in which states cannot legislate about copyright law. That's why there is no state copyright cause of action. There's no state,
and has not been since 1978.
Nope, that's correct. So basically, what they said is that this
and the California Act is the California Public Records Act we were speaking about here.
So they're saying that the California Public Records Act, or at least that aspect of it, is deemed unconstitutional, and therefore the city does own copyright, because they hadn't really gotten to the fair issue yet. They were still kind of tackling the copyrightability issue, because obviously if there's no copyright in the video itself, that's a much easier angle for the court to tackle, because they won't even have to address fair use. They're saying it's unconstitutional, so we have this copyright. But that was kind of smacked down by the judicial branch, which is a very, very fascinating example of divided government. I always really like when different branches of government try to smack each other down. They said that, hey, you're right about the supremacy clause, but you're wrong in saying that it stops this law. A state can choose to not to waive its copyright, to release its copyright. And that's what this...
And that's in the Copyright Act, your ability to waive, release, and do what you wish with it, basically.
Exactly. And so that's exactly what the state is doing. They waived... they're basically saying that anything that's made in local government or in state government, we're mostly waiving our copyright in those videos. And so that's what the court decided, is that's fine, and therefore there was no copyright, and therefore the suit and the takedown requests are all invalid.
But, this is how you know you done goofed in court. When judges are not notorious for making work for themselves, goes out of his or her way to rule on an issue that wasn't even before the court, just to further shut you up. The judge in this case went ahead and ruled on the fair use aspect, even though it was completely trumped by the copyrightability one.
Well, dicta is something that judges like to do sometimes when they want to get their opinion out on something. They'll be like, well, we don't have to address this, but we will.
But we're going to anyway.
We're going to. It's one of those gray areas in the law that most people, just from a policy perspective, disagree about whether, you should write dicta when you don't have to, but it's been happening since the beginning of times.
But that's how you know you got a judge that's stacked against you, when he does that just to further screw your case.
Okay, so why don't you tell us about it?
Well, the judge also ruled that, okay, even if it were copyrightable, basically that the use that this critic made of the videos was indeed a fair use, and that no reasonable interpretation or reasonable juror would be able to find that it was not.
You're saying that a citizen criticizing the policies of government
on
a video is okay in America?
I'm as stunned as you, Evan. I know but it's from the judge's mouth. We have to accept it. I mean, we've got to move on. We'll have to find a way to move on.
Well, speaking of moving on, Ashley Madison.
Oh God! This is just. I just realized we are digging a ditch full of something here on this episode.
Yes, well, butts and cheating. That's what we talk about.
Yeah, no, it's butts and cheating. I'm gonna have to jot down that title and make sure to use it. Oh man, but yeah, Ashley Madison. As we all know, they were hacked quite brutally. And after about a month or so, the hackers have decided to release all of the yummy data that they collected. Something like, I think they're up to something like 30 gigabytes of data released right now. But the primary interest is on about 9 gigabytes of data, which includes 37 million usernames and account information for pretty much everyone who ever used the site.
Yeah, I had a very interesting conversation with my roommate, Adam Kahn. He's a little bit of a Twitter phenomenon, and he showed me some interesting links about like where people are signing up most in the States. And I think did we talk about it? Something like, and this is not really relevant to the copyright show, but apparently Alabama is the state in which there were the most users. And there were more users of Ashley Madison per capita in Canada than in the United States.
Yeah, I did notice that. And it also helps, though, that ALM Media is a Canadian company. The company that owns it's Canadian. So but yeah, no, it was interesting. I actually found a place where you could look up the cities involved in your state. And I know Crystal is from this incredibly small town called Montgomery, Louisiana. It's, I think, literally got like 400 people who live in it. It's like pretty much a village, you know what I mean? And it's best known for being a speed trap. But it also had 3 paying customers on Ashley Madison. Which, and they were all guys. I mean, unless they were looking for other men, which, I mean, that's their choice, fine. But maybe they were in that region. I don't know.
It's the internet, John. They could beat someone in a different state.
Yeah. People who live in this town tend not to leave this town very much.
I would take it with a grain of salt because I think it was just a list of emails, right? So you can make an account with someone's email.
Actually, there was it was primarily listed email addresses, but they also listed whether the account was confirmed or unconfirmed.
Okay. So if they're confirmed accounts, then that's different.
Accounts, and also whether the account was paid for, whether the account had spent any money which is how Josh Duggar got into issue because he had
Right,
two
Josh
accounts that had
Duggar,
been paid
and
for.
Hunter Biden apparently is subject to this as well, and there's also there was I think a Republican
Louisiana.
state in Louisiana.
Yeah, they've been hearing about it. He was doing it for research. He swears it was research.
Just for research.
He was wearing a lab coat the whole time. That's what he is.
Well, I can safely say that none of my email addresses were on there because, of course, well, I'm single, but of course, the main reason is that I would never do it. But Ashley Madison is trying to use copyright law to save face on behalf of its customers.
Now,
they're basically go ahead.
Now, this is interesting because when there was the first initial sample leak that happened about a month ago. Ashley Madison fairly successfully used the Digital Millennium Copyright Act to get it removed and kind of put the kibosh on it. But now that the full thing is out, using the DMCA is a bit like spitting on a house fire. It's, you're not going to get anywhere. You're just going to get spit all over your stuff.
Well, my first reaction was that, like, what are they actually trying to protect? Because a list of names is not copyrightable. So it was really just screenshots, and that's what I was reading, is that they were issuing takedown requests even to some Twitter photographs that just showed where you could find it, and some were even news stories about it. So it's very shaky ground there.
It's in my opinion, for the most part. Now, apparently there was, and I read one article that indicated in the leaks. I have not looked at the full 9 gigs of leak because it turns out I actually have a life, and I have better things to do. But apparently there is copyrightable information in there, things like internal corporate documents and things like that one could make a legitimate claim on. But it seems like what they're targeting are sites trading in the account information, which does not strike me as copyrightable. If a phone book is not copyrightable, and it's not, then why on earth would a list of all the accounts on your site be copyrightable?
Okay, there's obviously that aspect of it, but what they're really trying to protect is the names of the people who use their site.
Yeah,
and so I think they're in trouble. Well, they are in trouble, obviously, because it's everywhere. And ask anybody who is actually trying to protect actual creative works, like the MPAA or RIAA, how much trouble they have. And if you're trying to do the same thing, and it's just a list of names, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because one thing I found very fascinating about this hack and this leak is how it has been spread, much like a Hollywood movie. It's making its rounds on the BitTorrent sites, all of them, pretty much. Mm-hmm. It is available for quote-unquote streaming on all these database sites that let you just search it live.
John, mark my words, I think we're going to see Prenda 2.0 coming out with these names. Oh, hi, by the way, I'm, company XYZ owned by John Doe, and I saw your name was this, and I actually got access to your account, which says that you messaged X, Y, and Z, and if you don't send me some money, I'm going to out you.
Yeah, and that's actually already happening. They've already found basically blackmailers attacking these accounts. So that's already happening. And the real tragedy of this is that there have been a lot of people who, were not really doing anything wrong, who were using the sites for various things. There was one guy who, I was reading this on Reddit. He lives in Saudi Arabia now, but it was in the United States for a couple of years. It was on Ashley Madison because he's gay. And it was a way Ashley Madison has a site dedicated to what they call down low hookups for gay men. Well, now that it's leaked, the Saudi Arabian government has and pretty much proof that he is gay, and being gay is punishable by death in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, that's obviously a very unique situation, and
it's a unique situation, but it's part of the unintended consequences of this kind of leak.
Yeah, and then there's all the anyone will find people make a news story out of these things, like your celebrities or politicians. I remember reading on Facebook. Facebook has that news section of what's trending, and it was like, Snooki's husband had an account, and I'm like, oh God.
Well, I remember the UK Prime Minister had an account. No, he didn't. His email address was in there, but it was an unverified account.
Yeah.
And basically someone, as a laugh, went there, filled out his information, and hit send and ran away. It's not that he actually was on Ashley Madison trolling, looking for someone to cheat on his wife with or whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not like that. And so it's But yeah, the use of the DMCA here, it's not, on top of probably not being actually copyrightable and all the copyright issues with doing it, it's also not going to help.
No.
The horses that left the barn on this one, you're opening yourself up to legal risk for absolutely no gain.
John, I'm ready to drop this story like it's hot.
All right, let's do that then. And let's talk about another mess, Snoop Dogg. This kind of blew my mind a little bit.
Did you miss the amazing
Yes, I did. No, I got it.
that I just made?
Yep, drop it like it's hot.
Okay.
I got it. No. You're the one with 99 problems, not me, as we discussed in the intro.
Maybe that's where you're going with that. So this is a very black and white story, I guess. It's just
no pun intended.
No, certainly no pun intended, John.
I was referring to the poster.
Oh, okay. This is just a plain intellectual property theft.
Yeah.
There's no gray area here. Snoop Dogg has, and with his production team, decided to make a sequel to something that they don't own.
Yeah, and the movie involved here is it was done by a company called Fuzzy Logic, which is going to really start screwing up the grammar in these upcoming sentences pretty badly. In 2012, they released a film called Snow on the Bluff. It was about a rough neighborhood in Atlanta and about a drug dealer surviving it. Well, apparently Snoop Dogg and a bunch of cohorts own a service called Trapflix, which I had not heard of prior to this article, by the way. But it aims to be a Netflix for the sort of the rap and hip hop crowd, I guess. And they created Snow and the Bluff 2, despite not actually having any rights to the original. They even used some of the original actors, some original characters. It's as sequel as a sequel can get without actually being an authorized sequel.
Yeah, I have no words for this one. Yeah. I mean, I think there was some indication at the bottom that there was some sort of communication that just did not work out. So,
and that happens.
Yeah, but it's always shocking when, not only have you not secured the rights, but you've notified the copyright owner of your intention to steal his intellectual property. So it becomes willful and it becomes like intentional, and there's no, I didn't know. So
yeah, we talk about copyright infringement damages. We all know that when you get into those intentional damages, that's when it starts really ratcheting up. But if you go for the statutory, but I think here they might actually, the actual damages might even be higher here. I don't know. It's be interesting how they're going to calculate damages.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. I just know there's going to be damages at this point.
The cases that are this black, like black and white, don't end up becoming, don't stay in the courts. They settle out because anyone who goes to a lawyer is like, well, you're going to lose, so let's just settle now and we'll avoid
cut our losses.
Yeah, let's cut our losses here. So, so I think that's what's going to happen here. I guess we could stay on the topic of plain copyright infringement because the owner of a company that I never really knew about called Rock Diz Music, DIZ, which was taken down last year. Was
apparently a pretty good run of like 4 years for one of these types of sites. They typically go down much more quickly than that, especially if they're U.S. based, like this one was.
Well, the owner Rocky P. Uprasith.
Yeah, your guess is literally as good as mine. Alpersmith.
One day we should do an outtake of all of our pronunciations.
Yeah, our terrible. With the mispronouncing things is our thing too, John Green. You are not the only one can mispronounce everything.
The gentleman pled guilty to copyright infringement. He was also addressing whether he was involved with, the future generations of this site. As with most piracy sites, someone will try to, take the layout and the name and whatever customer loyalty they've garnered. So the Rock Diz Music dot something else. So sorry about that.
No problem.
Heard that. Rock Diz Music dot whatever is still up now. So it's the whack-a-mole game that we always see when it comes to these piracy sites is ongoing. He apparently says, I've got nothing to do with it. I'm going to plead guilty, and we'll see what ends up happening with this gentleman. He started the site in 2011. Of course, it allowed people to access and download music, and apparently in 2014, the site had almost 1 million visitors and almost 7.5 million page views. So it was pretty serious. He was making something like $4,000 or $5,000 a month from advertising, and this is what happens to people who do this. They eventually get found and they get taken down.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this case is he's pleading guilty to one count of criminal copyright infringement. This is criminal copyright infringement, which is completely different standards than civil copyright infringement in terms of what constitutes a crime in this area. Because most copyright infringement we're dealing with is civil in nature. I'm going to sue you, and we're going to go to court. But criminal has a pretty high bar in the United States. But he met it, and the result of that is he's facing up to 5 years in prison, though it's unlikely since he seems to be a first-time offender. He'll get anywhere near that. If he does any prison time, it'll probably be in the lower end of the spectrum, I suspect.
Yeah, I agree. I think people are very hesitant. Judges are hesitant to give maximum terms to non-violent offenders. So I think
non-violent first-time offenders. Yeah,
you're probably correct in thinking that it's not going to be anywhere near that. It'll probably be like a house arrest, something.
And documents say that his infringement was more than $2.5 million, but less than $7 million.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. But I still think he's not going to end up in serious.
Now, that's not to say this is going to be the end of it. There is still possible civil action and restitution and other things too. So the criminal penalties are not necessarily the end, but we got to go through the criminal process first, is what we're seeing like Kim.com and so forth. One of the reasons he hasn't been sued, or he has been sued but all the cases are on hold, is because the criminal case has to play out first, and then the civil case can go through. Or if you want another example, O.J. Simpson.
Yes. Wait. Sorry, I was queuing up a little media file, so I missed that. Well, what about O.J. Simpson?
Yeah, another example of the criminal case having to finish up before the civil one could go.
Of course, yeah, that's right. Okay, so are you ready for a little media cue into our next story?
Go for it.
Hang on, is there any advertisement? Okay, here we go. All right, that was the Vietnamese national anthem.
I did not know what I expected, but that was not it. I'm going to be honest.
I just YouTube Vietnamese national anthem. I hope that's actually correct one. I really would know, but yes, apparently the Vietnamese government wants to charge royalties for its.
Yeah, this is bizarre. The Vietnamese national anthem was written. It's called the Marching Song. Was written in I believe it was 44. Basically, wait a minute, 19. When was it written? Come on, it's going to drive me crazy. I actually had it. But the composer of the song, who is deceased, his wife had previously promised to quote unquote gift the song to the public. However, the composer's family could not reach an agreement on doing so. And so now they have authorized the Vietnam Center for Protection of Music Copyright, which that name is a mouthful. You guys need a snappy acronym. If I've learned anything from the United States, it's that. Will now begin collecting royalties owed on the composition of the song.
It would actually be a pretty good acronym, the VCPMC. It rolls right off the tongue.
VCPMC. Okay, whatever you say. Interesting. I just realized this. I've got a Stevie Wonder ad in the sidebar on the site.
Are they listening?
I don't know. That's kind of creepy.
That's actually really creepy.
That's really, really creepy.
So
Yes.
Google added like an audio advertising.
Don't know. I'm a little unnerved now.
That's a little odd.
I'm just gonna click that ad and see what this is about. But yeah, no, it's very bizarre. Oh, and he's not even an ad local to either of us. It's in New Jersey.
Wow.
Wow.
I'll start yelling out extremely inappropriate things so that you get
We'll see
horrible advertisements put in front of you.
Okay. But yeah, so this is something that it's kind of unthinkable to us here in the United States. Our national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner, of course, has been in the public domain for quite a long time.
Yeah, and isn't Vietnam still ruled by a communist party?
I believe so, technically, yes. So that's also pretty interesting, too. But then again, they are signatories to like the Berne Convention and other copyright treaties. So.
Right. But, even though on the ground it may be capitalistic, you'd think they would at least save some sort of face in front of their people when it comes to this. I don't see how this is a good national policy. If you have an authoritarian government, aren't you trying to make everyone nationalist and love Vietnam and et cetera, et cetera? Though I think the last thing you'd want to do is
they did say that there are exemptions for children singing it in school.
Children in schools can sing their national anthem, but no one else.
Exactly. You at the restaurant, no, do not sing that.
How dare you? Pay up.
Yeah, it's crazy. They did say though that they do not think the royalties will be very much, but they are going to begin collect. Yeah, no, how generous, right? But they will begin collecting them. Yeah, this one it just seemed crazy to me. The idea that especially considering that there was a promise that it would be gifted to the public not that long ago, just 4 years ago.
That's right.
But yeah, it seems especially crazy given that the history of this work, the recent history of this work. So I don't know, but there you go. It's no longer free to sing the Vietnamese national anthem.
I certainly will have to make some serious adjustments to my daily life.
Yeah, my Spotify list is ruined now. I'm just saying it's ruined. It's totally trash now. I have no idea what I'm going to have to do. My running list is shot to pieces. Well,
brings us to our last story of the day.
Yeah. This one is very interesting to me because it involves two media giants. The CBC, that's the Canadian Broadcasting Company, which is
the Canadian Broadcasting
Corporation. Corporation. So I knew I was going to get one of the letters wrong on that one. And of course, CNN, the major cable news network, major news network here in the United States, they apparently both broadcast a video of a storm rolling in over Buffalo that was posted to YouTube by a nice gentleman. And apparently they did so without asking for permission or offering royalties or attribution or anything you would do in these situations.
It became a very popular video while at the time that the CBC and CNN were trying to get their hands on it. I believe he did make a few deals with a few local broadcasters, and he put it on his YouTube channel, as you said, which he monetizes, which gets advertisement. And he was also one of my kindred spirits, one of my kins. Mm-hmm. He was an intellectual property attorney. So when this was taken from him, he obviously knew what to do.
Which is interesting because as well as I do, CNN and CBC probably felt somewhat comfortable in taking it because they knew the odds of anyone being able to actually, fight back was effectively nil.
Well, they're usually pretty good when it comes to this stuff. You've got teams dedicated to this, and they know that people, photographers and videographers, this is their living, so they'll be pretty gung-ho about protecting it, so they try to at least contact them. And I think that's what the CBC did. The CBC allegedly got it from CNN, thinking that they were able to sign away the rights, or at least license it out to them. But as it turns out, CNN just took it from this guy. And I don't know if you had the chance to see the video. It's a 16-second clip of clouds coming from a lake. It's like
it
wasn't that cool. So
But it's but yeah, at the same time though, like you said, they're usually more on top of this than they are now. And we saw this not that long ago with Getty Images and the photographs from the Haiti earthquake. They made a really bad screw up taking some photographers' photos off of Twitter and basically distribute over their newswire to everybody, because Getty serves almost everyone on the planet.
That's right.
And the result of that was Getty ended up having to pay pretty handsomely for that mistake. And it's really frustrating when it goes wrong. But then again, like you said, and it was mean of me. And we all have to recognize that CNN and CBC both have to clear the rights to so much every day.
Yeah.
They have an impossible job there.
And I guess things do eventually fall through the crack when you deal with a million different pieces
but
of media.
when things fall through the crack, it's rarely a copyright attorney who they shorted.
Yeah.
And so usually they are able to correct it much easier than this, and they're being taken to task for it, and it'll be a very interesting case.
I think this is another one of these black and white cases. Right?
Yeah, it is.
They're just going to end up giving it.
And it's interesting, though. I happened to jump down to the comments here on Buffalo News. Very first comment, "Give it up. This is fair use." And then
fair use to just take the entirety of a clip
and then use it for the exact intended purpose in which it was originally posted to the internet for.
Yeah,
and make commercial use of it too.
Yeah, especially what's interesting about this is that the novelty of stealing someone's intellectual property, who's an intellectual property attorney, brought a lot more viewers to it, which allowed him to monetize the advertisements more, which allows him to show, listen,
Can you monetize a 16-second video on YouTube? I didn't know if you could or not, because I thought you had a minimum time requirement.
I'm not aware.
Oh, no, it's a minimum time requirement for pre-roll ads is what it is, to get the full package of ads.
Yeah, it's just viewers and ad views, and so...
there's certain ad types you can't get with less than 2 minutes. That's right. I'm remembering incorrectly. I must be tired. It's like it's the end of the podcast or something.
I think he's gonna have a stronger argument as a result. Listen, it's obviously a very important piece of media that was licensable. That's why this license figure seems more reasonable, Your Honor. I got 4 million views. I got it was clearly a valuable piece, so that's why I deserve a little bit more money. But you are correct. This does bring us to the end of the episode.
Yeah, and I'll say this: as with the Snoop Dogg case, I think this one's probably heading to a quick settlement.
I think you're right about that.
I don't see either side, anybody in this willing to fight it all the way out, which was odd because Getty Images actually did in their case, but this is not going to be that case, I suspect. Anyways,
I think you're right.
I think we're at the end of the show now. Any final thoughts? Anything else to add? Hate to put you on the spot.
Well, I think D's Nuts endorsed Bernie Sanders and John Kasich on each side, so I thought that was very important.
Yes, and David Duke just endorsed Donald Trump.
Okay, very important.
These are very important endorsements, I am sure.
That kid is a master troll, by the way.
Yes, he was very good. D's Nuts did a great job with that.
That
kid's going places.
That kid's going places.
Maybe not good places, but places.
He's going to be known forever as the guy who got a national media attention because he was able to register that person for president. I couldn't stop laughing when I heard it. So
yeah, and then it got all the news time, and then it blew up.
Well,
good kid, great creative kid, if nothing else. Well,
creative kid.
My name is Jonathan Bailey from the website Plagiarism Today, which can be found at plagiarismtoday.com, and username Plagiarism Today on Facebook, Twitter, and all the places.
And my name is Evan Sherris. Find me on Twitter at Evan Sherris. Feel free to engage, ask me any questions.
Yeah.
And we will see you guys next week. Actually, I know that you like to do the intro, so
go ahead. You can finish.
Take it back, and I'm going to let you go do it.
And we will see you guys next week.